Buongiorno tutti, mi chiamo Filippo Notarianni. No, okay, all right.
I love it. Okay, go ahead.
Okay,
Which camera are we looking at?
well, you're looking at me, I
You're
guess.
looking at each other.
Okay.
We're just talking.
Shoe repair, take one.
I've been doing some research on Dad, and of course you know that he was born in 1898
Yeah.
in Pedivigliano,
Pedivigliano.
Cosenza, Italy.
Yeah.
Okay, and he came to the United States in 1920, but prior to that, he apprenticed as a shoemaker, and the house that we've been to in Italy, if you remember when we were there in '72,
Yeah.
we went downstairs where the shop was, and we could see the markings on the wall.
Yeah, he
well,
marked all
he
the
marked
nails.
he marked the wall. So anyway, but things were so difficult economically for all the immigrants. That's why the period from 1890 up to about 1920 was considered. That was the mass migration of Italians to the United States because people just couldn't find work, they couldn't make a living. So Dad came in 1920 because Uncle Frank had come in 1914, and he had a job on the Union Pacific Railroad.
He was a foreman there, wasn't he?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, a section gang
Yeah.
foreman. Well, he came, and then Dad came in 1920. So he was born in August the 19th, 1898. So he was 22 years old when he came here, and I'm trying to find out a little bit more about what he did from the early 20s, but around 1924 to 26, I begin to see his name in the Salt Lake City directory with a guy named Joseph Kutchell, Kutcheull.
That sounds familiar to me.
Well, Kutchell had Utah Shoe Repairing Company in Salt Lake, and he's listed in Salt Lake, and Daddy is listed as Utah Shoe Repair in Magna. And so it was right around 1926 when Dad had the shoe shop across the street from this location where we are now. And but he was always listed with Kutchell as I don't know if he was the co-owner or if Dad finally decided to go on his own and bought him out. And that was about 1945 when they stopped listing that joint listing. So I'm thinking that's about the time that he might have, I'm not sure yet, but that's about the time. Well, in 33, he went back to Italy and got married.
Yeah, married mom.
Married Mom. Now, Mom was born July 15th, 1908 in Pedivigliano, which was the same town. They came back, and I have the steamship tickets on the Napoli, was the name of the ship, and they came back, and they went through Ellis Island. Daddy had gone through Ellis Island in 1920. Mom went through with him in 1933. Yeah, and her passport, which we have, says 40 quota, which means outside the quota. Because in 1924, 21 and 24, the U.S. passed immigration restriction laws to greatly curtail the number of Italians and Southern Europeans that could come to the United States. And so if you weren't able to come under the quota, you couldn't come. Well, Mom could come because Dad by that time had become a citizen of the United States. So she was able to come.
Did she come as her last name was Angotti?
Angotti. Now in Italy, women still keep their last names. Okay,
Yeah,
but she changed it according to according to the tradition here. So, but her name was Maria Carmela,
Yeah.
and they called her Carmela.
Yeah.
It was Maria Carmela Angotti. Now her parents, her father's name was Serafino, and her mother's name was Maria. And daddy's father was Luigi, and
That's where
and his mother was Francesca Barbario, the Barbers. Well, it's funny because our great grandfather was Filippo, our grandfather was Luigi, our father was Filippo, you're Luigi, and I'm Filippo. This equipment that's here pretty much dates from about the 1920s,
Yeah,
1926.
1920s, yeah.
And the research that I've done online for this stuff puts it about 1926. But he was in this shoe shop that was across the street from 1926 until 1956, when he had the shop built up at 3018 South, 9000 West, and it was built by Lawrence Dezzera,
Yeah.
another Italian
Yeah.
from Magna. And so he was in this shop down here for about 30 years, and then of course in that shoe shop up there, and until he passed away in 1977. And then you took it over at that time. You were working at Kennecott, and you
I
took
worked
it
at
over.
Kennecott, and then at night I'd stay at the house and
Yeah.
shoe shop.
Do you have any remembrances of the shop down here in Magna when you were a
Yes,
kid?
yes.
What do you remember? You remember anything about it at all?
I remember it was right next to the fair store, Sam Matt's, and I remember I would go there all the time and then go to the shoe shop when Daddy wanted me to sweep the floor and wipe the machines off. And
You
things
mean you
like
actually did that?
that. Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah. I was in elementary school, Webster, and I remember that Daddy, of course, at the time he chased me out because I was too busy doing something else,
Fitzgerald had the bar right next door to Daddy.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
remember that?
Cozy place,
Is that what it was called, the Cozy Place?
yeah.
Well, I remember one year, Mom, I must have been 5 years old or 6. She made some sausage sandwiches, and she gave them to me. She said, "You take them down to your father, down to the shop for lunch. Here's one for you and one for him." So I came down to the shop and came in and decided that we'd go in the back. There was a back room in the back. But he says, "Let's go over to Fitzgerald's and get something to drink." So I walk over there with him, and I remember this story so clear. Go over, and of course the place was closed because it was during the day, and the bar didn't open till sometime in the evening. Daddy had a key, so we opened the door, and we went in, and walked over behind the bar, and this big, I guess it was just a cooler. He opened it up like that, and he says, "You pick a drink." And I can't remember what I think it was the Nephi drink, or Nephi.
Nephi.
Anyway, I took it out, and he'd given me some money earlier. Gave me, I don't know, 15, 20 cents. He says, "Come here." And he took me around, he opened the cash register. He said, "You put your money in there." He said, "Mr. Fitzgerald," I'll never forget this, "Mr. Fitzgerald trusts us, so we have to be honest about it. So you took that drink, you pay for it." And so I put the money in the cash register, closed the cash register, went out and went in the back of the shop and had our sandwich. But I never forgot that
What year was that?
the lesson. Well, it had to be, I would say, probably about 1953,
Yeah.
52, 53, because I was just a little kid.